Aya laid on the bed smiling, and Omar positioned her just like they had seen in the videos. They giggled and teased each other, stopping whenever one of them got too nervous. From that first day, they couldn't stop. In the small, peaceful town of Lagos, there lived a family that everyone admired. Mr. and Mrs. Okoro were hardworking, kind parents, and their children, Nia and Omar, were the pride of the neighborhood. Nia, the older child, was a cheerful girl with a smile that could light up even the darkest room. Omar, who was quieter, followed his sister everywhere like her shadow. When Nia laughed, Omar laughed along. If she cried, he wiped her tears. The two were inseparable. Their parents were busy people, always working to provide for the family. Most afternoons, Nia and Omar were left alone at home. They spent their time playing games, telling stories, or sometimes simply sitting together in silence. At night, they even shared the same bed, whispering to one another about their dreams and fears. One afternoon, Omar came running into Nia's room, his eyes filled with excitement. "Nia, look at this," he said, holding up a shiny smartphone. Their father had recently bought it for him. Omar had taken it to school earlier that day, where some older boys had shown him how to visit strange parts of the internet, including websites meant only for adults. "What is it?" Nia asked, curious as always. "Come and see," Omar replied, climbing under her bed. He opened the phone and showed her a video. The screen displayed strange images of adults doing things neither of them understood. Nia frowned initially. What are they doing?" she asked. "I'm not sure," Omar said with a giggle. "But it's funny. It's making me feel good. Let's watch more," he added, smiling softly. "Me too. My body feels sweet," Nia replied, focusing more intently on the phone screen. And so they did. It started as simple curiosity, like observing an unfamiliar animal in the wild. They didn't understand what they were watching, but they couldn't look away. Each video brought more whispers, giggles, and unfamiliar sensations. The more they watched, the closer their bond became. It turned into their shared secret, something only the two of them knew, hidden away in the quiet of their room. The Okoro siblings unknowingly embarked on a journey they didn't fully comprehend, a journey that would change everything. Days blurred into weeks and weeks into months. The little secret they shared grew like a seed thriving in fertile soil. Every afternoon, when the house was silent and their parents were away, they would sit together, staring at the screen. Each video awakened something different in them: curiosity, confusion, and an inexplicable thrill. One sunny afternoon, Omar leaned closer to Nia and whispered, "Let's try what they're doing." Nia blinked, her heart pounding. "What if Mama finds out?" she asked softly. "She won't," Omar said with a confident smile. "It's just between you and me." Nia hesitated, her mind swirling with questions, but she trusted Omar. He was her shadow, her partner in everything. Slowly, she nodded, and they decided to mimic the things they had seen. At first, it felt like a game, just a silly game. Nia laid on the bed smiling, and Omar positioned her just like they had seen in the videos. They giggled and teased each other, stopping whenever one of them got too nervous. From that first day, they couldn't stop. They continued every afternoon, whenever their parents were not home. Gradually, they even started doing it at night without their parents noticing, because they both shared the same room and bed. "It's a bit painful," Nia would say, but Omar, already enjoying the moment, would use his hands to cover her mouth just so she wouldn't scream out. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Okoro stayed in their own room, sleeping, unaware of what was happening in their children's room. They believed Omar and Nia were having a good sleep, just like them. Little did they know their children were, in fact, having a different kind of good time together instead of restful sleep. Years passed, and by the time Nia was 14 and Omar was 12, their secret had grown deeper than they ever imagined. It was no longer a game, but something they didn't know how to stop. At night, as they lay in bed, the weight of their actions pressed on their heart. Nia often found herself staring at the ceiling, her chest tightening with guilt. "Omar," she whispered one night, "do you think what we're doing is wrong?" Omar paused in silence before finally replying, "It's just us, Nia. No one else will ever find out." Their once pure and innocent bond now seemed to imprison them. They couldn't figure out how to untangle themselves from the web they had spun and remain silent, carrying their secret like a weight too heavy to bear. The quiet house that had once been a place of comfort and safety now felt suffocating, like a cage. As the years passed, Nia blossomed into a beautiful young woman of 18, while Omar, now 16, had grown taller, his voice deeper and more commanding. Yet the bond they shared built on years of secrets, stayed unbroken. The innocent games they had once played as children had evolved into something far darker and more dangerous. One evening, Omar sat on Naya's bed with a serious expression. "Naya," he said quietly, "we should use protection. It's safer. Let's try it like we've seen in those videos." Nia's eyes widened in disbelief. "Protection? Omar, are you insane? What if someone sees you buying it?" Omar smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry. I'll be careful. No one will ever know." The following day, Omar walked nervously into a pharmacy, his heart racing as he approached the counter. The pharmacist barely looked at him as she handed him a small box. Relieved, Omar tucked it securely into his pocket and hurried home. However, as Omar stepped into the living room, he didn't notice the pack slip from his pocket onto the floor. "Omar, what is this?" Mr. Okoro's booming voice echoed through the room. He held up the pack, his eyes blazing with suspicion. Omar froze in panic, his mind scrambling for an excuse. It's for a school practical," he stammered. "Science class." Mr. Okoro frowned but didn't question further. "Be mindful of what you bring into this house," he warned, tossing the pack onto the table. Shaken by the close call, Nia and Omar resolved to be more careful, yet when condoms weren't available, they continued without them, convincing themselves everything would be fine if Omar pulled out when necessary. Their illusion shattered when at 19, Naya began feeling unwell. She experienced frequent vomiting, pale hands, and bouts of dizziness. "I think I'm pregnant," she confided one evening, tears streaming down her face. Omar's heart sank, though he tried to remain composed. "We'll handle this," he assured her. They pooled their savings and visited a local clinic, where they lied to a nurse, claiming the abortion pills were for a school experiment. The nurse hesitated but eventually provided the pills, cautioning them to use them responsibly. Back home, Nia wept as she took the medication, her body trembling with guilt and fear. Omar sat beside her, holding her hand. "No one will ever know," he whispered, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. But it didn't end there. The secret, like a shadow, grew darker every time Naya found herself in the same predicament. They repeated the process, crafting new lies for different nurses at various clinics and pharmacies, concealing their shame. Over time, the repeated abortions began to take a toll on Naya's body. Though she didn't fully realize the extent of the damage, unbeknownst to her, she was jeopardizing not only her health but also her future, as she remained unaware of the long-term side effects of the abortion drugs she frequently used. Their once close bond now felt like a chain, tying them to a secret spiraling beyond their control. More years went by, and it was finally time for Nia to seek a husband. At 24, Nia met Chuka, a kind and generous man with a heart as big as his wealth. He fell deeply in love with her almost instantly. Seeing an opportunity to leave her troubled past behind, Nia opened her heart to him as well. Chuka treated her like royalty, and before long he proposed with a glittering diamond ring. Nia accepted, convinced this was her chance to escape the dark shadow of her past with Omar. After the wedding, Nia broke things off with her brother. "We can't continue this," she said, firmly avoiding his gaze. Omar's voice wavered as he responded, "Nia, you can't abandon me like this." "I have to," she whispered, trembling. "This is my chance to move on." Omar was devastated but allowed her to go, though the burden of their shared secret weighed heavily on them both. 3 years into her marriage, Nia still hadn't conceived. Chuka, who longed for children, remained patient, but rumors began to swirl. Her worried parents turned to prayer, fasting, and even a prophet who offered them holy water to enhance Nia's fertility, but nothing seemed to work. "We need to see a doctor," Chuka suggested gently one day, his tone firm but caring. Nia hesitated, but she eventually agreed. They visited multiple doctors, each delivering the same heartbreaking diagnosis. Finally, one compassionate yet serious doctor spoke directly to her. "Madam," he said softly, "your womb has suffered severe damage from repeated abortions. Conceiving might not be possible." The words struck Nia like a bolt of lightning, shattering her heart into countless pieces. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she left the hospital, with Chuka silently walking beside her. That evening at home, Chuka confronted her. "Nia, I need the truth. What happened? Why didn't you tell me?" Sensing something was amiss, her parents joined the conversation. "Nia, please talk to us," her mother urged, her voice pleading. Overwhelmed by the pressure, Nia broke down in sobs. "Omar and it started when we were kids," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I got pregnant many times and had abortions. I didn't know what else to do. Her mother's wail pierced the room. "Oh my God, my children!" she cried, clutching her chest. Her father sat motionless, his face as pale as if all the life had drained from it. Chuka stared at Nia, his expression a mixture of shock and betrayal. "You kept this from me for all these years?" he asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. "I'm sorry," Nia whispered, her voice barely audible through her tears. "I didn't know how to tell you." The once joyful home was now steeped in grief, anger, and an oppressive silence. The truth, hidden for so long, had finally been revealed, and its weight was overwhelming. The room's atmosphere was thick with tension. Breaking the silence, Mr. Okoro cleared his throat. His voice was low and shaky as he began. "I knew this would happen ever since Omar was born," his words dripping with guilt. All eyes turned toward him, their tear-streaked faces reflecting confusion. "What do you mean, Papa?" Nia asked, her voice quivering. Mr. Okoro took a deep breath and glanced at his wife. She nodded slowly, silently urging him to continue. "Omar isn't your biological brother," he said heavily. His words hung in the air like a blade, cutting through the room's already suffocating atmosphere. Everyone froze, Nia's jaw dropped, and Omar's eyes widened in disbelief. Mrs. Okoro spoke next, her voice soft but laden with sorrow. "After we had you, Nia, the doctor said I couldn't have more children. My womb was too weak. But your father's family demanded a son. They said if I didn't give him a male child, they would send me away," Mrs. Okoro continued, tears streaming down her face. "We were desperate, so we adopted Omar the day he was born. He was just an infant. We thought it was the only way to keep our family together. We never wanted this to happen." Nia's chest tightened, her heart pounding like a drumbeat. "You lied to us," she screamed, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Why didn't you tell us? Do you realize what you've done?" Omar, who had remained silent, suddenly stood up, his face pale and his lips tightly pressed. Without uttering a word, he turned and walked out of the house. "Omar, wait!" Nia shouted after him, but he didn't pause. The door slammed shut behind him, the sound reverberating like thunder throughout the room. Nia turned back to her parents, her tear-grilled eyes blazing with rage. "You hid this from us our entire lives. How could you?" she demanded. Mr. and Mrs. Okoro sat in stunned silence, their heads bowed low. They had no explanations, no justifications. What they believed was a solution to protect their family had, in the end, destroyed it. The house, once warm and brimming with laughter, now felt icy and desolate. The burden of two devastating secrets had demolished the foundation of the Okoro family, leaving behind only sorrow and regret. The days following the confessions were steeped in silence and heartbreak. Chuka, who had once cherished Nia deeply, now regarded her with cold, distant eyes. He couldn't bring himself to forgive the lies, the secrets, and the darkness that had been kept from him. "I thought I knew you," he said one evening as he packed his bags. "But I can't live with this. I can't live with you." Nia dropped to her knees, tears cascading down her face. "Chuka, please don't leave me," she pleaded. But his decision was final. He walked out of their home, leaving Nia behind with a heart shattered into pieces. Omar, too, found the burden of the truth and the shame it carried unbearable. One night, without saying a word to anyone, he packed his belongings and slipped away. He didn't tell a soul where he was headed. He simply vanished, leaving behind the only family he had ever known. In the Okoro household, the once warm and vibrant home felt as lifeless as a graveyard. Racked with guilt, Mr. and Mrs. Okoro spent their days in quiet prayer. "God, please forgive us," Mrs. Okoro whispered repeatedly, her voice shaking with grief. "We tried to protect our family, but we destroyed it." Nia, now left alone and unable to have children, spent her days reliving every decision she had made. Hamet, the laughter she once shared with Omar, the secrets they hid, and the lies they told, haunted her like a shadow she could never escape. Her body, weakened from years of abortion, served as a daily reminder of the choices she could never undo. The Okoro family, once admired for their closeness, had been torn apart by secrets and silence. Their story became a whispered cautionary tale in the neighborhood, a stark example of what happens when parents fail to guide their children and allow secrets to fester in the shadows. The once solid foundation of their family had crumbled, leaving each member broken in different ways. Nia's health continued to deteriorate, and she found herself making frequent trips to the hospital for treatments. Her dreams of having a family of her own were now unattainable, and the weight of her past choices bore down on her every single day. She wrote countless letters to Omar hoping he would come back, but none of them were ever answered. Omar had disappeared, leaving no trace of where he had gone. Mr. and Mrs. Okoro, weighed down by guilt and regret, grew distant from each other. They spoke only occasionally, spending most of their days in silence, lost in prayer and reflection. Neighbors who had once envied the Okoros now pitied them, their home a somber reminder of the price of secrecy. Years later, Naya, now older and frail, sat by her window, gazing at the empty streets of Lagos. Her life had become a quiet meditation on regret and longing. The secrets that once connected her to Omar had unraveled her existence, leaving her with only memories of when innocence and love turned to darkness. One rainy evening, as Nia sat by the window, a knock resonated through the quiet house. She hesitated, uncertain who would visit at such an hour. Slowly, she opened the door and froze in place. Standing there was Omar, older and visibly worn, his once youthful face now etched with the passage of time. His eyes, which had once sparkled with mischief, were now filled with sorrow. "Omar," Nia whispered, her voice unsteady. Without speaking, he stepped inside, his gaze locking with hers. The years apart had created a gap between them, yet their shared past still hung in the air like an unspoken confession. "I couldn't stay away," Omar said finally, breaking the silence. "I needed to see you." Nia was overcome with a whirlwind of emotions. Relief, guilt, and a deep ache she couldn't fully understand. They sat together in the dimly lit living room, the gentle sound of rain tapping against the windows. "I've tried to move on," Omar admitted, his voice heavy with regret, "but I couldn't. The past, it won't let me go." Nia nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "It won't let me go either, Omar." Every single day, as they spoke, the years of pain and silence slowly began to unravel. Omar recounted how he had moved from city to city, taking on odd jobs in an attempt to forget. "But no matter where I went, our secret followed me," he admitted. Nia shared her own struggles, her failed marriage, her inability to have children, and the profound emptiness that had overtaken her life. They wept together, two shattered souls bound by a sorrow so deep they knew they could never fully escape its grasp. Omar stayed for several days, helping around the house and reconnecting with his parents, who were now frail and aged. Mr. and Mrs. Okoro were overjoyed to have their son back, though the shadow of their family's fractured past still lingered heavily. "We're deeply sorry for everything," Mr. Okoro said one evening, his voice quivering with emotion. "We made terrible mistakes, and we've paid for them every single day." Omar gave a quiet nod but said nothing. The relationship between him and Nia remained strained, burdened with unresolved guilt and emotions. One afternoon, as they sat outside beneath the shade of a mango tree, Nia turned to Omar with a hesitant voice. "Do you think we'll ever heal from this?" she asked softly. Omar's face reflected his inner turmoil as he replied, "I'm not sure," he admitted, "but I do think talking about it helps. We've kept everything bottled up for so long, maybe it's time to face the truth instead of hiding from it." Nia nodded, even though the idea of confronting their past filled her with fear. Together they chose to attend counseling, hoping it would help bring closure to the pain that had defined their lives for so long. The journey was slow and difficult, requiring them to face buried memories they had tried hard to forget. Their therapists encouraged them to forgive not only each other but also themselves, to recognize their humanity, and to understand the circumstances that had shaped their decisions. Gradually, Nia and Omar began rebuilding their lives. Although Naya remained unable to have children, she found a new sense of purpose mentoring young girls in her community. She taught them about self-worth and the importance of making thoughtful, informed decisions. Drawing from her own painful experiences, she became a source of wisdom and compassion. Meanwhile, Omar established a foundation dedicated to educating children and teenagers about the risks of exposure to harmful content and the vital role of parental involvement. Their efforts, though rooted in tragedy, began to bring healing not only to themselves but also to those they helped. Their parents, still carrying the weight of guilt, found comfort in watching their children transform their pain into purpose. "We can't undo the past," Mrs. Okoro said one day, "but we can learn from it and help others avoid making the same mistakes." Slowly, the once shattered Okoro family began to heal. Although the scars of their past would never completely disappear, they discovered a way to move forward. Nia and Omar's bond evolved into one built on mutual support and understanding, finally free from the dark shadows that had once defined their relationship. Years later, Nia and Omar stood together at a community event where they were being celebrated for their impactful contributions. As they spoke to the crowd, they shared their story, not the darkest parts, but the valuable lessons they had learned. Secrets have the power to destroy families, Nia said, her voice calm and confident. But honesty, guidance, and love can help rebuild what has been broken. Omar continued, "We're far from perfect, but we've realized that confronting the truth is the only path to healing." The audience applauded warmly, their heartfelt words striking a deep chord with everyone present. Although their journey had been marked by pain and deep regret, Nia and Omar discovered redemption through helping others. What was once a story of tragedy transformed into one of resilience and hope. The Okoro family, though irreversibly changed, became a powerful example of the strength found in forgiveness and the importance of confronting the past to create a brighter future. The whispers in the neighborhood shifted from pity to admiration, as the family that had once been broken proved that even in life's darkest moments, there is always a path to light and renewal.